Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. Behind me is the beautiful scenery of Barcelona, with Barcelona's old home, the Camp Nou, under reconstruction with the Yellow Cranes, and where they will be playing in the Champions League match against Napoli at the Montjuic Stadium, the one that you see behind me. And with me, I've got a very special Catalan friend and guest, big fan of FC Barcelona.
Yeah, Mickey, thanks for bringing me up here.
Mickey, tough season, right?
Yeah, it's been a tough season, tough moment. Even the last 2 years, even though we won the league, I think that this is just an illusion for us. And in my opinion, there are tougher times ahead.
All right, guys, let's get back into the studio. You heard it from Mickey. Things seem like they're only going downhill from here. But before we talk a little bit more about this season and the future of Barcelona and the upcoming game, why don't we take a step back and see how they got to this position in the first place? Because this is a story that starts long ago. Now, we're going to cover different aspects of this, but one of the biggest that have led to Barca's downfall have to be the results on the pitch in none other than the Champions League competition, the one that we will be facing Barcelona in. And we cannot not talk about the Roma Barcelona game, the one where Costas Manolas scored from a corner, giving Roma a 3-0 win after they had lost the first game in Barcelona 4-1. Disaster for Barcelona. And this was the first real wake-up call, the first real alarm bell for Barcelona of how, from a sporting perspective, especially at the European stage, things were going downhill. Fast forward to next year and a corner taken quickly by Trent Alexander-Arnold. And we get one of the biggest shocks and one of the greatest comebacks in UEFA Champions League history, with Liverpool 3-0 down in the first leg. Barcelona actually had a chance with Dembélé to score the 4-0. He messes that up. Messi goes on the floor, almost crying at the fact that Barcelona didn't get a fourth goal. And we're all thinking, guys, it's 3-0, it's fine. But no, it's as if he saw the future. He saw this corner taken quickly before it happened, and Liverpool went on to win 4-0 at Anfield, knocking Barcelona out in dramatic fashion for the second year in a row. Then we get to the COVID year, and this is possibly the most traumatic of all. 8-2 loss against Bayern Munich at home. Okay, sure, there weren't any fans in the stadium because it was COVID year, but still, to go to the Camp Nou, regardless of whether there's fans or not, and win 8-2 and have none other than Philippe Coutinho that scores twice, a guy that's on loan from you after you sent him away as a Barcelona flop, that has got to hurt. And then the next year in 2021, again, another disappointing Champions League match, 4-1 against PSG, again at home, and you have the likes of Mbappe and Neymar that assert their dominance in Barcelona in front of Lionel Messi. And this was possibly the reason why then Messi decides that PSG might be a good option for him. So lots of Champions League traumas, but it's not just that. It's not just what happens on the field, but there was a lot of really strange decisions being made behind the scenes with Barcelona's transfers. And there have been so many messed up transfers that have led to all sorts of levers being pulled, such as they have to call the Camp Nou the Spotify Camp Nou. They sold 25% of the Barcelona studios to socials for 100 million, and most importantly, they sold 25% of their TV rights for the next 25 years to an American company. That's a lot of money that's going away, and all this because of their horrible transfers and mismanagement of wage and La Masia. But let's focus a little bit more on the transfers, and let's start off and only really focus on the front ones, the attacking transfers, because I think this is the easiest to sort of digest, and we can't really go over the entire Barcelona team. But let's start off with the fact that they had Messi, Neymar, and Suarez back in 2014. Then Neymar decides to join PSG because he feels that he's too much in the shadows of Lionel Messi. He needs a place where he can be the main man. Fast forward a few years, and that becomes Mbappe. Fast forward even a few more years, and Messi joins PSG. So that didn't work out too well for Neymar. But the MSN trio, Messi, Suarez, Neymar, breaks apart for a bit over 200 million euros, and that immediately half of that gets spent on Ousmane Dembele from Dortmund. Already here, it's more than 100 million of Neymar's transfer fee spent for Ousmane Dembele, who then immediately gets injured. And within 4 months of Dembele joining, Barcelona decide that they need another person to come in and really be the star of the show. So why not go for another Brazilian since Neymar was so effective? Why not choose Philippe Coutinho? But Coutinho has a really tough time in Barcelona, so they decide that he's a flop. And within a few months, they ship him off to Bayern on loan, where he actually has a pretty good season. And this is the season where Philippe Coutinho then scores 2 goals against Barcelona in the Champions League to knock them out. But Philippe Coutinho, is deemed not good enough to come back to Barcelona, and so what Barcelona do is that for the basically third or fourth consecutive transfer market, they spend another 100 million on an attacking player. This time from rivals Atletico Madrid, they get Antoine Griezmann, a very, very prolific goal scorer in La Liga, proven inside of that league. But at this stage, it's been 2 years since Neymar has left, and they've already spent more, maybe around 100 million more than what Neymar's departure gave them. But Griezmann doesn't really work out in Barcelona. And then you have the issue that Suarez is starting to get injured. So, because of that, they then have the opportunity to sign, controversially, Braithwaite from Leganes. Basically, what happened here was because Suarez was going to be injured for a very long time, there's this rule in La Liga that you can sign another striker or another player to replace whoever is injured without it having to be within the transfer period. And controversially, they sign a player from another La Liga team, Braithwaite, for 18 million. That's an insane amount of money for a player of such low quality. Then Suarez comes back from injury, but obviously Barcelona feel like they need to start reducing the amount of wages that they carry. And so they ship him off for 6 million euros only to Atletico Madrid. And by the way, he then goes and wins the title for Atletico Madrid. So he was still prolific at this time, even though he had a few injuries here and there. But we really just went from Messi, Suarez, Neymar to now Neymar in PSG, Suarez in Atletico Madrid. And so you've only got Messi left. And so what do Barcelona try to do to keep Messi happy? Well, they go and they sign Kun Agüero from Man City on a free. But because his salary is so high, guys like Piqué, Jordi Alba, Busquets, they all had to take massive pay cuts to let this happen. And you could say that this is a great piece of business, right? Getting El Kun Agüero. Well, in the end, no, because El Kun Agüero lasts about 4 games for Barcelona before he is diagnosed with a heart condition. Honestly, this is nothing that Barcelona could have really predicted. But I mean, you've just done a medical for this guy. Surely something there should have told you that this was a player at risk. But because Kun Agüero is ruled off, their replacement was Memphis Depay and Luke De Jong, and then that's That's when really Messi has had enough. Maybe he would have stayed if Kun Agüero was still fit. I don't know. But as soon as he saw Luke De Jong and Memphis Depay, he was like, hell no. Hell no, I'm not staying. And obviously, uh, regardless of that, guys, Barcelona could not keep Messi. His wages are way too high. Apparently, even if he would play for free, it would still be too high. And there was even a law that states that Messi couldn't play for free because in Spain, they can't lower your salary by more than 50%. So even at his absolute legal minimum, which was a 50% salary cut, Messi could not stay. And then finally, last year, they decided to bring in Robert Lewandowski, but this is a 50 million euro signing for a guy that was 34. One of the best strikers out there in Europe, had a very good start to the season, but then you could tell that from Christmas onwards, he started to decline quite rapidly. Could that be for other reasons other than his age? I don't know. But when you think about the fact that Barcelona, in a financial crisis, spent 50 million for Robert Lewandowski at 34 years old, surely that raises some questions. I'm sure they could have spent the same amount of money for someone that could guarantee them a bit longer in terms of performance. But guys, the things happening with the transfers is not the only issue. Let's go back a few more years to 2012 when Barcelona against Levante fielded a team where 11 of their starters came from La Masia. Guys, this is legendary. I don't know if this has ever been done by any other team at that level. These, by the way, were world champions at this time. They won the FIFA Club World Cup. A lot of these guys are World Cup winners either at this point in their life or later on they become World Cup winners. I don't know if there's ever been a team that can say that they had this level of players all starting, all from their youth academy. And even their coach, Tito Villanova, is someone that breathes Barcelona. So this was a peak point for Barcelona. But then obviously, what does this do, guys? This sends a message, a very profound and interesting message, a marketing message to everybody else out there in the world. It basically says if you grab a player or a coach or a scout from La Masia, this is what they can turn into for you. This photo might seem like a normal photo to you, but imagine you're a Man City, you're a Juventus, you're a Bayern Munich. You look at this photo and you see the potential for these players to become elite superstars. And so what do? You start poaching these guys. And Barcelona, they thought that they could just keep on producing like there was no tomorrow. And so whenever a team did come for a La Masia player, they just let him go. 1 million or 2 million for a 16-year-old? That's great. That's going to really help me financially. Rather than think, hey, let's preserve our talent. Let's at most send these guys out on loan, but let's not sell them. Let's not make quick money now. Let's keep this player. Let's make sure that they progress in their career, and then maybe in 5-10 years we can sell this player for 50-60 million. But no, they took 1 or 2 million from some of these players and completely lost their right and ownership. And then you fast forward from 2012 to 2020 when Napoli played Barcelona in the Champions League the last time, and there were only 3 players in that starting 11 who came from La Masia, and they were all above 30: Jordi Alba, Busquets, and Lionel Messi. So there was a point where from 2014 onwards that they started selling all these La Masia youngsters, and no one was coming through the ranks. This led to obviously a lot of protests within Barcelona, where, this is a huge banner saying, don't touch La Masia. La Masia is of everybody. It's ours. It's a Barcelona thing. Stop selling our young players. And the issue is that they started selling all these young players, and then they realized that no one was coming through the academy anymore. And so then that's when they had to go and dish out things like 100 million for Ousmane Dembele and 100 million for Philippe Coutinho. But imagine if Yamin Lamal or Ansu Fati were being produced in 2016, 2017, then maybe they wouldn't have had to go and buy those players. But there was literally a 4 or 5 year period where no one was coming through their academy, and so they felt like they had to go and spend all this money for outside players. Guys, by the way, the Barcelona team of like 2014, before they started selling all these players out to other clubs, they were UEFA Youth Champions. They came third in the Spanish second division, this Barcelona B team, and they had a lot of talented players. And guess what? As soon as they started selling all these players the next year from so the 13-14 season, UEFA Youth Champions, best youth team in Europe, in the 14-15 season they get relegated to third division. And now all of a sudden there's another problem with that. A lot of these players now want to actively leave the club, or even the ones that want to stay, they are now playing week in, week out at a level that's one category less than what they used to. And the level between third division in Spain and first division is massive. Not only that, but the level between third division in Spain and Barcelona's level within the first division is even more massive. So some of these players that were in this Barcelona B team of the year after the UEFA Youth League, whenever they were called up to the first team, the gap was just too much. They weren't able to provide any sort of help for the first team squad. Then there was also a scandal where it just shows how badly the La Masia was run, where 10 players were brought in, underage players were brought in illegally without doing the proper paperwork. And Barcelona in 2014-15 was hit with a 12-month transfer ban. If that doesn't show you that this club was running La Masia to the ground, their most prized asset, then I don't know what can prove it. Let's give you maybe a concrete example with youth captain Eric Garcia. Some of you guys may know him. He's now a well-renowned player. But Eric Garcia was Barcelona youth captain, a center back, which is so hard to find nowadays, a good center back. And he gets sold to Man City for 1.6 million euros at the age of 16. And his salary went from 15,000 in La Masia to 250,000 in Manchester City's youth academy. Imagine being 16 years old and Man City offer you 250k a year. But that's exactly what La Masia became. It became a symbol of grab a player from here, pay him any money you can possibly afford because he might be a next superstar. And Barcelona didn't do enough to invest in these young players. Now, looking back, you might say, well, how can they compete with the likes of Man City? It would be foolish to offer 250k. I'm not saying they should be offering 250k to every La Masia player, but maybe to your captain, potentially, yes. And also, this guy, he was being represented by Carlos Puyol, so he had the opportunity to really develop into a fundamental player for Barcelona, and they just let him go. And by the way, you don't have to match Man City's offer of 250k. All you got to do is you got to even be somewhere in the middle, 100k, and probably Eric Garcia for 100k at 16 years old would have definitely stayed in Barcelona for the chance to put on the shirt of his boyhood club. In the end, Eric Garcia plays for Man City, becomes a starter, plays important games, but then his contract runs out, and Barcelona, on a free, luckily enough, get him back to their team. So in the end, this guy did end up coming back to Barcelona for relatively, no amount of money, but he comes in a time when Barcelona are struggling, and they haven't developed him the way that they maybe could have if they had kept him in house. And with the criticism of the center backs that Barcelona was getting 2 or 3 years ago, uh, Eric Garcia is then shipped off to Girona, the other Catalan team, and guess what? Now he is top of the league or second in the league by the time I'm recording this video with Girona, but crucially ahead of Barcelona. So, definitely shows that he has the level. And yeah, it's another example of Barcelona not trusting in their youth talent. Even when they managed to miraculously recover one of one of them. Obviously, now with Xavi, things are changing. You have players like Yamal playing a lot, Pedri, Gavi. Ever since basically the COVID-19 crisis in 2020, when Barcelona's struggles became very evident and very public. Then Barcelona started reinvesting into their La Masia. They stopped trying to sell their best players for a quick profit onwards, and now they're reaping the rewards with guys like Yamal, Gavi, Pedri, and Xavi. He is going to be responsible for giving these guys the opportunity to really explode, to get first team football. And one day there will be a Barcelona manager that will be reaping the rewards, maybe with a Champions League win, who knows, with guys like Pedri, Gavi, Eric Yamal, all guys that made their debut with Xavi. He understands what a Barcelona coach needs to prioritize, which is the La Masia players. But the fans are very fickle. They don't want to wait that long. They don't see the long term project that maybe an outside observer like myself can see. And it's a real shame because I think that he was building something quite nice. There was also recently a refereeing scandal, which I think just highlights the bad management of this club, where over the course of several years, payments of over 7 million euros have been made from Barcelona to to a specific referee, who, by the way, was, I believe, the vice president of the refereeing committee in Spain at one point. Now, Barcelona argue that this guy was retired when they made those payments, and they argue that this was basically just consultancy services to basically help Barcelona understand the approach of certain referees. So, for example, you get given referee X, and this guy comes to you and says, "Oh, okay, referee X, he tends to be very lenient with his yellow cards, so maybe you can get away with a few more tackles," right? Nothing wrong with a bit of consultancy services, but when you are spending 7 million over the course of several years and the referees don't change that much, I feel like there might be a little bit more to it. All these things just show that this board and the power struggle between Bartolomeo and Laporta really drove Barcelona to the ground, and it's a real shame for a club like them. All right, guys, now it's time to go back to our conversation outdoors with Mickey to talk about more recent and pressing items. I apologize in advance if the audio sounds a little bit weird, but there was a lot of wind, and that's exactly why I don't record things outside.
I think that this is just an illusion for us, and in my opinion, there are tougher times ahead.
And a lot of fans are saying that Xavi is the problem. Are you on that camp, or do you think the problem is maybe Lewandowski is not scoring as many goals as last season? Busquets and Kessie were not replaced adequately, because I think that Gundogan is not exactly their direct replacement. So is it an issue with the transfers this season, the coach that didn't get things right, the boardroom? What's the biggest issue this season?
So, I mean, that's a good question. I'm not gonna be this person who's gonna blame just the coach, because in my opinion, it's not only about the coach; it's about the whole situation around. First, let's face it, we're not playing Camp Nou. This the stadium, Luis Companys, has, the Olympic one,
The track, yeah.
the track, I don't know how it's called, yeah, exactly. So it, makes it like harder to feel the players close. Also, let's face it, I mean, injuries. We lost Gavi, we have been losing Pedri for the last 2 years. Still, this year is recovering, he's not in his prime. So, and apart from that dependency, we lost one of our best players. We always talk about Messi, Luis Suarez, Neymar, but we lost Busquets. And nowadays, I think that was Del Bosque who mentioned that if he could choose, he could play with 11 Busquets in his team. So we lost one of the best players in the whole world.
And I think that Busquets and Jordi Alba leaving, they were the glue between Xavi and the current set of players because they played with him. They were his men, and he's lost that. And I think that's why he's slowly starting to lose the dressing room as well. And regarding the stadium, guys, it's hard to reach. Fans are not even filling that stadium out. There's no parking space, hard to reach. It's a real problem playing there. And this was a team that last year only conceded 4 goals at home in the Camp Nou. In the La Liga, and now they've completely, shown us that they can't defend anymore. They conceded 23 goals since the year 2024 started, all since that Girona lost 4-2. I think that's when things really started to go.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you're
downhill.
mentioning this, that we're blaming, everyone's blaming Lewandowski because he should be our, point to follow. He should be our leader, but what about Araujo, for example? He used to be like the best defender in the whole world. Like his level this year, his performance is like terrible. It's a disaster. We even considering like on sending him away. I don't know, Bayer with listening to offers. So I don't know what's gonna happen. But it's the whole team.
So guys, this year a lot of issues. One last question: predictions, both for Napoli, Barca. For you, it's away from home, and then overall, who do you think is passing the round?
So, in my opinion, and we do all respect, I think that both of us, Napoli and Barcelona, we're like struggling. It's not our prime anymore. But, based on the facts, I still think that we have a better roster. We have like better players, like more prepared, like more experience. And I think that this time is going to lean towards our team, Barcelona. I think that we're
On both games, or
yeah, I think that in both games. Yeah, honestly, I know that it's Maradona, right? Paul, not San Paulo anymore. Yeah, I think that although it could be very, very intense there, I honestly think that you cannot last. You're not prepared to keep it up for 90 minutes there.
I'm not even gonna, say anything against that. Our team is really bad this year. We're sitting in 9th. I mean, if they feel like they're having a bad year, spare a thought for us, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Now
having me here.
lunchtime.